Welcome to Solve It Like a Marketer. Today, we're looking at Sigmund Freud and consumer behavior. Don't go away. All right, let's start with a little background. So Sigmund Freud lived from 1856 to 1939 and developed one of the most important psychological approaches to understanding personality. Now, specifically, an understanding of human behavior focused on the role of unconscious thoughts, feelings, and memories. In terms of free will, Freud believed as humans we're actually unable to control our own behaviors, rather that all behaviors were predetermined by motivations that lie outside our awareness, in the unconscious. Now, these forces show themselves in our dreams, in neurotic symptoms, for instance, obsessions. Now, Freud further argued that we rarely understand why we do what we do, although we can make up explanations and excuses for our behaviors after the fact. So let's dig into the theories themselves. Freud separated the mind into distinct levels, each with its own role and function. So the conscious mind contains all of the thoughts, memories, feelings, and wishes of which we are aware of at any given time, our conscious mind. The preconscious consists of anything that could potentially be brought into the conscious mind. And finally, the unconscious mind is a reservoir of feelings, thoughts, urges, memories that are outside our conscious awareness. These could be feelings of pain, anxiety, conflict that we've repressed. Now, as you can see, Freud likened the three levels of the mind to an iceberg. The top of the iceberg that you can see above the water represents the conscious mind, but it's really a very small part of the whole. The bulk of the iceberg lies unseen beneath the waterline, representing the unconscious. That's usually the one that gives us all the trouble. Now, in and around this, we have the theory of the id, ego, and superego, the interactions and conflicts of which create our personality. First up, the id. Now, this aspect of personality forms the basis of our most primitive impulses. The id is entirely unconscious, and it drives motivations including sexual drive or libido and aggression or destructive thinking. Now, the id is driven by what we call the pleasure principle, the desire for immediate gratification. The superego, in contrast, represents our sense of morality. It tells us all the things that we shouldn't do or points out our obligations to society. When we do something wrong, we feel guilt. That's our superego. The ego is based on the reality principle. So it is the conscious controller or decision maker of our personality. Basically, it struggles to maintain order between the naughty desires of the id and the wagging societal finger of the superego. So how does this all relate to marketing and consumer behavior? Well, let's take a look at a couple of examples of ads and apply this theory, bearing in mind that we really have to take all of this with a grain of salt because contemporary theorists don't really take many of Freud's theories too seriously anymore. Let's start off with a car commercial and see how we feel. Now, I would propose that this ad speaks directly to our id. It's all about making the owner feel good about themselves, sexier, smarter, wealthier, successful. You can feel it in the almost primitive nature of the ad, appealing to the consumer's need for immediate gratification. These kinds of ads highlight the pleasure principle. Other product categories geared towards maximum pleasure can include clothing, alcohol, makeup, and even perfume. Now let's flip to the superego, telling us what we ought to do and what is right. And what better demonstration than healthy eating?
We all love eating food, but we need to start thinking and talking about it too, because the future of food is one of the biggest challenges on our plate. Food and drink are more central to our lives than we might think, since they connect everything from our health to the world around us. Let's take our friends the bees. Everybody knows they're famously busy, but did you know that by transferring pollen between plants, bees help create around 1/3 of the food we eat?
Now this ad strikes all the right notes with our superego. It has us thinking what we should be putting into our body so that we can stay healthy, questioning moral dilemmas such as where the food came from and how to be good to the planet as we harvest foods that are sustainable and work in harmony with the ecosystems we exist alongside. This ad is positive and upbeat, from the music to the cheery voiceover. Hence, we feel good about ourselves and the positive impact we're having on the planet and society as a whole. Other superego appeals might include ads for self-care, charitable donations, or PSAs. Now, studying Freud really can be fun, and I highly recommend some of his writings on dream interpretation. Again, the caveat is that many of his attitudes are extremely dated, such as how he viewed women and homosexuality. But generally speaking, Freud was correct in his assertion that we aren't masters of our own minds. Now, what we are actively aware of at any given moment and the actions we take are also affected by forces outside our conscious awareness and control deep within our subconscious mind. Hence, we now have a whole therapeutic approach called psychoanalysis, which tries to uncover these repressed thoughts. Thanks, Freud, for at least making us aware of the unconscious mind and thus contributing to modern-day psychology. If you'd like to see more videos like this, hit the subscribe button. I'll see you every week with a new video, so please stay tuned, and together, let's solve it like a marketer.